Ashe, Ashe, Emily. Hey, so welcome again back to the Sacred Responsibility book study. I'm going to go ahead and share our screen.
How's everybody feeling this rising?
Yeah. Uh, okay, here we are. Give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Okay.
I said,
Blessings, Sister Lorraine. Thank you for that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get into our view. Okay. So, kings and queens, last week was our opening ceremony, and we pretty much laid the framework of what to expect, right? In terms of this is going to be a 6 week book study. And each week we're going to cover the lessons, right? Or the chapters that have been assigned inside of the school community, right? So for the first week, it was chapters basically prelude and intro through chapter 4. And last week during the opening ceremony, we did discuss um, that opening of the way between chapters 1 and 2, which was really about bringing online this idea of what it even means for each of us when we hear the phrase sacred responsibility,
mm,
right? How to shift from that mindset of, awakening into shifting into the awareness of what that awakening really brings online.
mm,
Once the awareness is there,
mm,
what it brings forward, right?
mm,
And how that greets us in a sense of responsibility.
mm,
So this week now we are in the second half of that, right? Which is chapters 3 and 4. And it's really more so in those chapters anchored in consent, peace, avoidance, and alignment
mm,
and book study form, right? As we always do in this space, we're going to dive into what all that means. So in chapters 1 and 2, we name the patterns, right? Chapters 3 and 4, now we're naming the cost,
mm,
right? And the intention here in community is to make it plain.
mm,
Something that, it's very simple for us to walk away with not only an understanding, but an understanding of. So in chapters 3 and 4, James will share. Just admit. Okay.
Okay, so chapter 3 was the body of consent. So what you agreed to without knowing you were agreeing.
Mm,
Hmm. How your silence became a contract and why the body kept the record your mind rewrote.
mm,
So, I mean, just think about what it's saying, right? So what you agreed to without knowing you was agreeing. I
mhm,
mean, there's so there's different ways to look at that, but just think about like even in life, right? The things that you go through without your body even knowing or agreeing to
mhm,
what's happening.
mhm,
Um, we was talking yesterday on a call, even about like the anxiousness or even like what your body remembers, even as something that you've been through
mhm,
that you don't speak out loud,
mhm.
but automatically
It comes
it
online.
comes online. Your body
Mhm,
knows, like you're so in tune um, with not just what's happening now, but everything that your body has taken in.
mhm,
Um, so say something's happening and it's a conflict.
mhm.
Something might have happened previous that your body has already wrote something inside of your DNA that says when this happens, this is
This is how
how
we respond. Yeah.
right, right.
Mm,
So
that's good.
you may not even know it yourself and be aware of what's
Mhm,
happening until we start catching the patterns and
mhm,
understanding what the cost is of what happened, or maybe we didn't dive deep into it in the moment to really understand what happened to our body and taking it in.
mhm,
Um, but now that is part of us.
Hmm.
And that is part of that story whenever something like that happens. So
Hmm.
then your silence becomes a contract. So say instead now I
Hmm.
say, you know what? I felt this way before. You know what, this time I'm just gonna be silent. I'm not even gonna you know what? I'm not even gonna get into it.
Hmm.
Now, you didn't necessarily handle
Hmm.
or resolve what was going on inside of you. What you did was say, instead of addressing it, I'm just gonna be silent,
Hmm.
right? Um, so there's many ways to understand that and understand what that's doing to your body, the silence of not addressing it in the moment or sitting down with it. That's why we always have that saying, I'm gonna sit with that for a second,
Hmm.
right? Um, Sometimes once we understand the pattern, we need to sit with it and work through that feeling, understand what we was feeling in a moment, um, and exactly what is the next step in
Hmm.
that healing. So then chapter 4 is the architect of peace,
Hmm.
the difference between peace and the absence of conflict.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I just said, you
Hmm.
know, I could be silent,
Hmm.
but is that true peace?
Hmm.
Right? Your body will tell you. Um, how avoidance became a spiritual practice.
Hmm.
Mm,
We're gonna get into it,
we're going to
y'all.
get into, yeah. What alignment actually costs and why it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll get more into what alignment actually costs.
Hmm.
Um, because we have a misunderstanding sometimes of what alignment is,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And then the phrase from the actual book is you did not learn self-abandonment.
Yeah.
You learned that consent was not required of you, and then you stopped requiring it of yourself.
Not sure.
Mm, I
Because
say,
we didn't call it self-abandonment,
no,
right?
no.
Not sure. Okay.
Mm,
We're gonna get deeper, y'all. Okay. So, in the book study, for those of you that are returning, you're familiar with this. If you're new to the space, welcome to this invitation to this idea on how to approach words, right?
mm,
So, we recognize here as a community that words hold tremendous power and they also hold history. Right? And so often we are using words based on either our current understanding of it or the dictionary's current explanation of it. And oftentimes we are bypassing the initial energy that this word was introduced to the world in,
mm,
right? So what we do is we break it down into the etymology, which is going back to the origin of the word is deeper than the definition, right? It's when did this word make its way, right?
mm,
Historically into our being,
mm,
right? And it's based on as far back as we can actually go in
mm,
terms of getting that initial origin definition, essentially, and
mm,
that's called the etymology. So we know words carry their history
mm,
and they carry the history even in our bodies, even if it's unconsciously, right?
mm,
So what we seek to do in this experience is to bring it online, make it conscious for us. So
mm,
we are aware of the intention of that word at its origin.
mm,
So starting with consent, breaking it down very simply, it was a Latin word that started in a place of just meaning to feel together, to agree. That's what consent is, right? So what it's not permission given under pressure.
mm,
The original meaning was two people arriving at the same felt sense simultaneously, right? Consent was never meant to be extracted, right? It was meant to be mutual,
mm,
right? So it's not
mm.
one person gives and you know what I mean? It's a
Right.
mutual. Then there's peace, also a Latin origin, and it meant a pact. And this one I thought was
Mm.
pretty interesting because it's not the way I have been using, right?
I agree.
Peace, right? Prior to researching this. But peace was a pact, an agreement. It was freedom from civil disorder,
Mm,
right?
mm.
So if we think about peace as being a pact, it's almost something that you need to do in a communal way,
Right.
right? It takes two or more parties. So peace was never silence.
Mm,
It was an active agreement between parties. What we call peace is often the absence of expressed conflict.
Mm.
It's that moment of saying, I'm not going over there where so and so is because I'm protecting my peace,
Right,
right?
right.
Um, which is a pact with avoidance, not with truth.
Mm. Mm.
Right. So just anchoring into what we're starting to get deeper into what we really mean when we say peace. Then it brings online now avoidance, which was an old French verb. I'm sorry, now that meant to no verb to empty out, to make void. So
Mm.
avoidance meant to empty out, to make void. So to avoid was literally to make something empty. Every time we avoid a truth, we create a void, and voids don't stay empty.
Mm.
Right? They actually fill with resentment, distance,
Mm-hmm.
and also misalignment.
Mm. Mm.
So that's what enters into the empty space when we are creating a
Avoid.
void, right? Avoidance. So then now we're going into alignment and what James was mentioning earlier on about what we really think and feel about alignment.
Mm.
Okay, so alignment was a French word that meant to arrange and align, to be in accord with,
Mm.
right? Okay, so it's not agreement, it's not compromise. Alignment means standing in the same direction, even when you're not standing in the same place.
Mm. Mm.
Standing in the same direction, even when you're not standing in the same place.
Mm.
It requires knowing where you actually stand.
Mm.
And again, we're really intentionally trying to make this, as plain as possible. But we all in this community are well aware that knowing where you actually stand
Mhm,
takes some inner work.
mhm,
It takes some self-awareness, right? And it also takes some external awareness in
mhm.
order to know exactly where you stand.
Sure.
We're gonna keep going forward. And then once we get through the content of the pages and the study, we are certainly gonna then pivot into our open share. So keep in mind and highlight, circle, underline, keep your notes on anything that's coming to the surface for you because we definitely want to hear it.
Sure.
I'm sure. So moving into, this idea, right? Consent is not a boundary.
Mm,
And I think, perhaps many of us were never really thinking of the word consent when we think about how we're navigating our life anyway. And once we start to now hear more about consent, perhaps at this point it's starting to feel like a boundary, right?
mhm,
But it's actually more so a relationship with your own knowing.
mm,
So you have to be so anchored in knowing where you stand,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
And all at all times, or allowing yourself to be still long enough, quiet long enough, whatever that looks like for you, long enough to truly know where you stand in order to consent to anything, to give that yes, that no, whatever, right?
mm. It's just really quick.
Yeah.
It's just so much in alignment with what I've been talking about recently with the brothers. Just understanding it starts with you.
Yeah.
Everything starts with you.
Hmm.
The truth, the alignment. You
Hmm.
first have to know you
Hmm.
to be aligned with anything or to connect. So it's just when you're reading that, I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's true presence,
right,
right?
right,
Because if you're not truly present with what you stand
right,
for,
right,
what you're about, what you're
right,
not, right?
right,
Then you'll just live a life where you're constantly overriding yourself.
right. I say,
And you might be doing it consciously, or you might be doing it
I
unconsciously.
say, yeah,
But the idea is to really, get as rooted as you can be each day in that knowing
yes.
so that you can give or not give your consent. So what we're taught is that consent is what you give or withhold in a single moment, that it is a yes or a no to a specific request,
Mm,
right? That's how we typically
mhm,
think about it, right? If
mhm,
you've been to school and you needed a parental consent
mm,
for something,
right,
right? Like
right.
it's yes, no, sign on a dotted line. But what the book is revealing is that consent is ongoing,
Hmm.
right? So you've been consenting to conditions in relationships and your work and how you're treated every day, things that you may not have necessarily named plainly.
Hmm.
right? But you've been giving your implied consent because of your continuing your involvement in, right? Your continue just staying in.
Hmm.
And then the awareness is you did not have a problem saying no to others, right? You had a problem saying no to the version of yourself that needed you to keep performing.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why that awareness is different at this stage is because, again, this is post-awakening.
Mm-hmm.
This is not, any longer we're talking about we're on the healing journey and we're still eyes wide shut, right? No, we are now in this space of being woke, right? We're in this space of the awareness, the knowing. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
The knowledge is there, right? So the problem isn't saying no to what you know exists anymore. It's about there's another version of yourself that just became so accustomed,
Mm-hmm.
right, to performing in that space, despite the discomfort, despite the inner no, despite knowing that it's going to exhaust you, despite knowing how it's going to deplete, right? Despite how knowing that what you've been asked to do is going to morph into something else. Like you've rode the rhythm of this before,
Mm-hmm.
right? And but there's a version of you that learned how to do it,
Yes.
how to surf the wave. And so it's actually now about saying no to that version of yourself.
Right. Right. That's it.
Yeah. So the line in the book here would be you had language for everything except consent.
Mm,
You could name the ask, you could name the pressure, but you could not yet name the moment you agreed to something your body had already declined.
mm, mm.
And keep moving forward, family.
Okay, so true peace,
Mm.
true peace. It requires parties to be honest, right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
Not in agreement,
Not an agreement,
just honest.
just honest. Wow. Lives inside truth, not silence, right? Well, actually, let's go back and forth, right?
Okay.
So it requires parties to be honest. And then false peace is requires only one person
Hmm.
to go silent.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Right? Thinking about that in the context of relationships, and it doesn't have to be romantic
Hmm.
relationships, right? But when conflict shows up and one person just feels like this is a disruption to my peace.
So that's it. I'm going
So I
silent.
want to shut this down. I
Hmm.
don't even want to discuss it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to. And then now that other person has to make a decision on whether or not they want to gift you that,
Right,
right?
right. And
Or
that
consent to
can
that. And
that
it when we both know that's not
that's
peace.
not true peace.
That's not peace.
So again, true peace lives inside truth, not silence. False peace lives inside management, not resolution.
Right. You got
Mm,
to manage how you feel and manage the expectations of the
mm,
others,
hmm.
or just moving things around instead of addressing it and clearing it out,
Not resolution.
not resolution.
True peace is an active agreement, not an absence. False peace is the absence of expressed conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Hmm. This one was a tough one for me
mm, mm,
through my journey, right? Because so often when you're in your healing space, you have found yourself into this comfort of your bubble that you've created.
hmm.
And then when you have to now exit
Mm,
that, right, and go back out now into a space where let's say for some people, maybe that's like Thanksgiving.
right.
Sometimes you'll see like those memes that circulate online from Thanksgiving. Like you're going to whatever family member's home or they're coming to yours, and you
Hmm.
already know, right, that there's gonna be some energy,
Hmm.
right? And perhaps you've just determined peace could look like staying home. I'm not even gonna go.
Right,
You know what I'm
right,
saying?
right.
Right? But the truth is there are other people there who would enjoy your presence
Yes,
and who you would have enjoyed their presence. So it's not full peace,
right,
right? Always.
right,
It's more like this um lacking of expressing the conflict. Like I'm just gonna avoid it.
right,
I'm gonna avoid it
right,
so that I can stay in this sense of false peace.
right.
But it's still there.
It,
We haven't done anything with
no,
it.
right, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, and true peace feels like rest in the
Mm-hmm.
body.
Mm-hmm.
False peace feels like tension held carefully.
Hmm.
Mm,
Hmm. Like when you know that there's I'm just giving examples, right, y'all? But because I'm sure you have your own examples. But if you feel like that onboarding of a rage, you know how it
mhm,
feels, right? It,
mhm,
it, it starts low, it gets higher, higher, higher. It's in your ears. Your ears start getting warm, and you know
mhm,
you're upset about something, and you're like,
mhm,
you know what? I'm just gonna behavior modify. I'm just
mhm,
gonna change how I handle
mhm,
what I'm feeling
mhm.
versus change how I can approach actually resolving the
Right,
matter. That's the tension that you're holding carefully.
right.
And there may be days where perhaps you haven't received as much rest.
Mhm,
You didn't get your nourishment today. You didn't eat. You know what I mean? And it'll be a lot more difficult to hold that tension
right,
with care.
right,
And then that's when it slips out because it's still there. It's not true peace.
right,
Yeah.
right. I say. True peace can coexist with disagreement.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I say. And false peace cannot survive contact without truth. With truth, I'm sorry, cannot survive contact with truth.
Yeah. Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it can coexist.
They can. It's the idea of not being knocked off your seat,
Right.
right?
You don't
If
have
you
to
can,
agree.
right, you can place yourself in the throne of the highest version of yourself and live there in a space of not feeling like every time someone else brings on some disruption, you're
Hmm.
being knocked off of it
Right.
just because there's a disagreement.
Right.
You can believe what you believe, and I can believe what I believe
Absolutely.
without it disrupting,
Right.
my being. Yeah.
Right. And you don't get that tension
Hmm.
because you feel like already you have this pattern of disagreement and what it feels like.
Hmm.
If you really accept that it's okay to have two different views,
Right.
it's okay.
Absolutely.
It's all right.
And by far, we are not saying that we're always going to live in true peace,
No.
right?
No.
Which is what we're just trying to bring forward is a way for us to really discern if what we're doing is bringing us closer to peace or if what we're doing is really just avoidance,
Right.
avoiding things that, if revealed, uncovered, discussed, dismantled, might actually bring us to peace.
Right. I say true peace is renewable because it is real.
Hmm.
Absolutely. False peace accumulates until it collapses.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and from the book, it says, there is a reason, I'm sorry, there's a season
Hmm.
when life looks stable because you are the stability.
Hmm.
That is not peace. That is you holding what has not yet been named.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
Mm,
you know, the idea here is, and it goes back to some of what we discussed on last week's opening ceremony, sometimes life is stable and you're being the stability, and that's because you are holding pieces of a scenario that are not yours to carry.
mm,
Right. So these chapters 3 and 4 go into that as well, right? Around this idea of, are you holding things that were just not yours to carry? And you doing that is what's holding everything together.
mhm,
And perhaps you're thinking, well, as long as I can just hold on and keep it all together,
mhm,
then we can remain peaceful.
mhm.
But that's false peace.
Right.
If it's requiring you to carry what doesn't belong to you, if it's requiring you to be the full-on stability of it all,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Perhaps that's not peaceful at all.
No, and when we talk about it and we talk it out and you feel the weight
Hmm.
of not living in true peace.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm,
I'm almost there, y'all. We're gonna get it to open share.
mm,
So here we dive into, misunderstanding around alignment, and the
mm,
book speaks to this, right? So oftentimes when we say alignment, what we really mean is agreement, right? If we're
mm,
aligned, we think that means that we are in agreement,
mm,
right? So the book really anchors us into something that's just more honest, right? And what people typically think is agreement, harmony, everyone moving in the same direction at the same pace. There's no friction. that's not necessarily alignment, right?
Mm,
But that's what we tend to believe. What alignment actually requires is, again, knowing where you stand,
mm,
right? Being honest about that position, even when it creates temporary distance.
mm, mm, mm,
Choosing a shared direction without requiring the other person to abandon their truth.
mm.
That's alignment.
That is,
When
yeah.
you can be true to yourself
Right,
and I can be true to myself,
right,
and then we can still go on a path towards a vision,
right.
that's alignment. That's alignment. Agreement is, look, I think that the way I see it is better. We
Hmm.
should do it my way,
Right,
right? You agree, I agree, and then we go forward,
right.
right? You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah.
Or um, even if we think about it in a space of spirituality, and I'm going to be even more pointed to say sometimes in religion.
Mm,
And I know that in this space is non-denominational, right? So it's an open space for all of us, no matter what your religious beliefs are or are not, right? But using religion as an example, sometimes you can um, surrender to the idea of the doctrine,
mm,
right? So let's use it in the context of marriage.
mm,
If we are married and we have done so under, Christian belief,
mm,
right? Which we have,
mm,
right? Then now you have a belief system, right? A belief that's within a context, right? The Bible or whatever that would be, right?
mm,
And it means that we are now agreeing
mm,
that we are going to live by that.
mm,
But that's still agreement. We're
mm,
not saying there's anything wrong with agreement,
mm.
but we're saying we have to be clear that that's different than
Alignment.
alignment.
Yes.
So if your marriage is based on agreement and not alignment, that's an example, right? Maybe it's not marriage at all. Maybe you're thinking about it in a totally different context. Maybe it's in your secret work or anything else. The idea is really just to get clear about there's a difference in agreeing to something
Mm,
and being aligned with it.
mm. I
Yeah.
see.
So why this is uncomfortable? Because real alignment often begins with misalignment named out loud.
Mm,
You have to call it out.
mm,
And oftentimes, if we think that we're going to disrupt the peace and
mm,
create conflict,
mm,
we may or may not be doing that, right?
mm,
Let's think about that even in, like they said, there's been so much flight out of the corporate settings, right?
mm.
Why? Because sometimes it becomes very uprooting to constantly have to bring forward misalignment,
Right, right.
to constantly name it, right? And sometimes you then might get, titled being the problem
Hmm.
because you keep being the person who's bringing it forward,
Right,
right?
right.
So it's like before y'all,
Right,
completely, disregard my reputation, right?
right,
And change it to some narrative that it is not. I'm just getting out of here.
right.
But that's another example, right? Misalignment often is where we can find the true alignment.
Mm,
You cannot align from a position you have been pretending to hold, right?
mm,
Again, bringing it back to, relationships. Where have you been pretending?
mm,
Big, pretense, small pretense. Maybe it started out, you said you like the Knicks because he likes the Knicks.
mm,
You know what I mean? I don't know. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. Well, where have you been pretending, right? And maybe it's not romantic relationship at all. Alignment is not the destination. Honesty is the path that
mm,
leads there.
mm.
So you're not going down a path in order to immediately hit alignment. You're not going down the path to sometimes even immediately hit agreement. You're just being honest.
Right.
And oftentimes this is why, certain relationships, whether it could be a significant other or a family member or a friendship or a coworkership or a situationship, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
right? If both parties are not being honest, you'll
Mhm.
never even be able to discern if there's true alignment.
Right. Right.
If you show up as the representation of your best self, and I show up as the representation, and we never introduce each other to the true
Right.
version of ourselves,
Right.
how can we ever reach alignment? Sometimes you'll be in relationship, any type of relationship, years down the line
Hmm.
before you get really introduced
Right.
to the truth
Yes.
of someone. So in this, the line from the book is Freedom is knowing what you are carrying and choosing it consciously,
mm,
right? Alignment is what becomes possible once you stop carrying what was never yours.
mm,
Y'all keep y'all notes because we want to hear from y'all. Because here we are. We're at the ends here now. So this is where we start, we just bring it together, right? So this is how this chain was built in the life that we're examining, right? And we say examine because in order to know where we're standing, which is what we've been saying here, right? You have to examine and investigate your life to get the information you need
mm,
about what you believe, what you want, what you desire, what's best for you,
mm,
right? So started out with consent being absent. You stop requiring your own agreement. You
mm,
never even thought about it,
mm,
right? You agreed to conditions that your body declined,
mm,
right?
mm,
I think we talked about, like the brother that might have expressed like, I don't remember the moment I ever agreed to being a parent,
mm. Right,
right? It
right.
just kind of
Happen.
things happened.
Right,
I might have agreed to the act,
right,
right? That
right,
brought on,
right.
right? But I don't remember the inner moment that I really agreed
Hmm.
to it, right?
Hmm.
So there was no consent,
Right,
right? In that regard.
right,
And sometimes we don't make it a safe space to say things like that,
right.
right? It's like, well, no, 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 you should know that if you do X, Y, then Z is gonna happen. And perhaps that's true, but it still doesn't mean
Mm,
that I onboarded this awareness of consent. So that
right.
consent is absent. Then we move into avoidance comes in. So now you start managing the situation
Mm,
that perhaps you never really agreed to. And now inside of it, you start managing the truth. I
mm,
don't know if I can even really say how I really feel. That might be really terrible. Somebody might say I'm a really terrible person for saying this, right?
mhm,
So then three, right? The false peace arrives. Well, I'm just gonna make peace with what is.
mm,
I'm gonna be quiet. I'm not gonna bring it up.
mhm,
This is what it is now, right?
mm,
The avoidance looks like stability in
mm,
this place.
mhm,
I'm going to live with it. I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to rest here, right? You call it maturity. You call it not wanting to rock the boat and protecting peace,
mm,
right? And then four, that's that final stage where now the alignment is lost.
mm,
The alignment is lost because you've completely overridden everything about yourself at this point, right? So the alignment is lost and it happens sometimes slowly and without you really noticing it,
mhm,
right? And it doesn't announce itself. And now when you look up, depending on who you are, where you are in your life, sometimes there's a milestone birthday that shows up and you're like, man, I've really drifted away from
mm.
who I am.
Right.
Somebody's going to call it a midlife crisis. It's actually a midlife awareness.
Right.
You're like, wait a minute, I have been moving further and further away. So, sacred responsibility is the practice of walking this chain that we're looking at right now backward. It's about naming the drift, it's about reclaiming consent, telling the truth, and then choosing alignment consciously.
Mm,
And that's why it feels hard. It feels hard to have the awareness because you're sitting and it's like, but I wrapped my whole life around
mhm,
these decisions I've made
mhm.
along steps one, two, three, and four.
Right. Right.
And it can be frightening to now walk it backwards, but it
Right.
doesn't have to be. And this is where we open it up to you all, family.
I say.
Ashe, because this is where we land with consent, peace, alignment, avoidance, asking yourself the self-inquiring question.
Right.
Right? For consent, where have you been consenting to conditions, whether it's a relationship, a role, a version of yourself that your body has already declined?
Mm,
What kept you from naming it? Maybe it's a habit you wanted to stop,
mm,
but you enjoyed that habit with specific people in your
mhm,
life.
mhm.
And now when you're with those specific people, it feels like the habit goes with it. So I
Right.
just need
Right.
to indulge in it. But your body keeps reminding you that you're supposed to be breaking away from the habit,
Right.
right? You no longer have submitted your consent to it.
Mm,
The peace on peace. Where in your life have you been calling avoidance peace?
mm,
You just stopped showing up to the barbecues. You stopped answering the call,
mhm,
you know? What is the difference in how each one feels in your body?
mm,
Where do you feel it?
mhm,
You know? Avoidance. What truth have you been voiding? voiding,
Mm.
right? Because sometimes we want to think of avoidance as we push something off. No, we made it empty. We made
Empty.
it an empty space. It's a void now, right? So what do you need to be saying out loud that you haven't, right?
Mm.
What has moved into that void instead?
Mm.
Oftentimes, it's resentment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So true. So true. Yes.
And then lastly, alignment. What would you have to stop pretending in order to align with the direction your life is actually calling you toward?
Mm.
What do you have to stop pretending? Do you have to stop pretending like you believe in a 9 to 5? Do you have to stop pretending that you believe that you need to be a full-on entrepreneur with no 9 to 5?
Mm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that in order for your children to live a healthy life, you have to remain in relationship
Mm-hmm.
with, with another party? Like what have you been pretending, right? In
Mm-hmm.
order to just stay rooted in something that you know is not the calling.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there are no wrong answers here, right? There's only truth. And at this point, I guess we can open it up to the rest of you all to say, and maybe there's just one of these boxes, right? Maybe it's
Mm.
consent or it's peace or it's avoidance or it's alignment. But what came up for you? We want to hear from you. Did you want to share?
Um, well, I won't go too much, but I'll start it.
Hmm.
I'll just say, so, um, you know, one of the things I think about is even in your job role,
Hmm.
you know, performance um comes in to my thought process.
Yeah.
Depending on where you work and what you didn't necessarily give consent to when you signed up for that job, you know,
Mm-hmm.
right?
It's not even in the description.
Right, it's not. You don't really know, and then you get there and you're like, well, hold on, okay. Well, wait, I didn't consent to this. I didn't say I need to be this way or do things in this way. Maybe you come from, like, for instance, example for me is coming from a place of higher management
Yeah.
and taking a different role where you're like mid-management, where now some things is not in alignment,
Hmm.
right, with the visions and the culture and the practice that you're used to.
Hmm.
Um, and you see the operation and you're like, yeah, but I didn't sign up for this,
Hmm.
right? So you can avoid
Hmm.
and make empty,
Yeah.
right? But like you said, it's going to fill with something resentment or different, and it will. It has.
Hmm.
Even for myself, when I looked at like even different management people and just resenting on how certain things are being done or how somebody's not being true and really caring about the staff or the people,
Hmm.
and you're a person that maybe really connects with people and cares about that, where you see
Hmm.
other people are not, and it's
Hmm.
more they do things in a way that is more selfish for their own benefit, and you can't have alignment.
Hmm.
It's not about the agreement with this person, but just alignment and understanding. Hmm. Okay, so this is the direction you want to go.
Hmm.
I'm standing in the direction that I want to go. How does this align? You may realize, like, wait a minute, it does not align.
Because the vision isn't agreed upon, that
Right.
it's not a consistent vision. Yeah.
Correct. But
Mhm.
again, going through all this and understanding um, about how do you find your true peace in it.
Hmm.
And it's amazing because it's something that I actually traveled down in my job role, and because I've talked to you about many different things along the way. Um, sometimes like for me, the true peace that I found in it was the pockets of where you can be true to yourself
Hmm.
in your role still.
Hmm.
You may not have to control everything around you, but
Hmm.
what you do control is how you operate and how your vision is as far as yourself and how you want to be in that role. And then understanding the purpose.
Hmm.
Why are you here?
Yeah. Goes back to knowing where you stand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know? Um, so that's some of the things that I thought about when I was reading about just a role or a
Yeah.
performance,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Ashe.
That's it.
Ashe. And kings and queens, yeah, let us know if you'd like to come off mute. Just hop off if you want to share or raise your hand, and let us know. Um, I saw Sister Selena said in the chat, it's all of them. And she said it's all of them.
Right.
I shared
Right.
them.
Is there anything that came up for you?
And
Yeah.
Selena,
Mm.
yes.
Yes, Lord. I was like, why is she in my head? Was she in my life? Like, oh my God. I'm trying to see where I wrote it. At one point, I was reading and I was like, this is exactly where I am
Mm,
right now, like full on presence. And I've had many experiences
mm,
along the way that I could just like easily uh, pull on. I don't know what I was getting into and getting to this book, but it had me up all night trying to get through
oh,
all four chapters. Speak so more of this, right, and be in alignment with yourself and the agreement that you have made with yourself, the
yeah.
agreement that I made with myself, right, and even just learning how to use I versus you because it ain't
Mm,
everybody's
Mm.
story.
yeah.
I could talk all day about just these four chapters. I really processed one and two because it was a lot getting through the introduction, the prelude. Like
Mm.
I thought I was good when I got to chapter one, and then something in me, something in me said, I think she
Yeah.
said you got to read one through four. I was like, oh my God. So I was up later than anticipated because the goal is to be in the bed by 9, be reading from 9 to 10, to fall
Mm.
asleep reading. That didn't happen no days this week except for last night. So it was like, oh my God. Oh my
Mhm,
God.
mhm,
Learning so much. So a couple of things that popped out for me was the mask.
mm,
Mm.
mhm.
Wearing the mask. You called it the representative. Learning that that
Um,
was even something that was going on. Like,
yeah, yeah,
Lord have mercy. And deciding that that's not where I want to being in agreement, going in that. And as you said
yeah.
in the book, it still takes a while. You still going to, now, see, or I'm saying you, and it still took me a while. I was still doing it, all of that. I don't believe I'm doing as much of it now because I'm
Mm,
in the active practice of
Mm.
being my most authentic self.
yeah.
And sometimes that's not always nice or kind. That was the other thing that showed up around this. A lot of it showed up around for me, religion, religious
Mm,
beliefs,
Mm.
what I
mhm,
believed to be true at the time and how I was supposed to show up,
yeah.
Mm.
not knowing who I was before, the world told me who I was,
Mm,
and all of those things, and believing that, you know, being a good Christian is being kind, keeping the peace,
yeah.
learning that, okay, I ain't keeping my peace. I'm keeping somebody else's peace
Okay,
for the sake
okay.
of somebody
Right.
else's peace,
Yes,
right? Like,
Mm.
yeah.
and learning learning what self-abandonment really means.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
I didn't have that language for a long time.
Mm.
Um, like my profile picture says disruptor teacher.
Mm,
I,
Mm.
I when I heard the word disrupt her for the first time, it instantly resonated in my body,
mm,
everything, because I was learning that I had been maintaining the status quo. And
okay.
that is why I arrived here in the first place,
Gosh.
where things were off, out of alignment, no peace, c- giving consent unintentionally. Um, Suffering in silence was a big one for me,
Yeah.
also.
Hmm.
Um, you know, going through so much, carrying that weight and that heaviness till it damn near broke me, because I didn't know who I was. I was disconnected from myself.
Okay.
Like everything that I believed, I was compromising in the name of marriage, in the name of keeping the peace when shit was a hot mess,
Mm,
and like all of the things. And I recall when I the first time I said it out loud, I was living in Las Vegas, working a full time job, running a business full time,
Yeah.
doing all of the things, and never consented.
Mm.
Never consented to be
Mhm.
in that space,
Mm,
but was fully in it because I volunteered.
mm,
Mhm.
I didn't consent, but I volunteered.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just did it like that instinct. Just yep, 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 yep. And then so I was married to a Jehovah Witness at the time. When we got married, he was disfellowshipped, all the things. I've known him for, at this time, more than 25 years. And we had agreed that we would determine where we would serve together. That never happened.
Mm.
Got to the hall, he never wanted to leave. And I was feeling empty, not being
Mm.
fed, none of that. Just like it was a mess. And then I decided I can't
Mhm.
go anymore. I'm done with that. And then I found this small church that resonated with me that I was following online. It was actually a marriage ministry, these couple.
Mm.
mm,
And then I learned that they had a church right there in Las Vegas. Talk about alignment.
mm,
This is
Yeah.
where we're getting in alignment. Well, anyway, when I showed up there, when I went up to meet the pastors, and it was a male and female couple, um, I got up to talk to her, and all the words that flew out of my mouth, I don't know where they came from, but it said, "I don't know who I am."
Mm.
I'm gonna leave it there because, like I said, I could
Shay.
go all day. I want to
Shay.
yield the floor. I'm complete.
Give thanks.
mm,
Give thanks for
mm,
that share. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And as hard as it can be sometimes to emotionally reconcile, like, how did I get to a place where I don't recognize who I am? It's also a blessing
mhm.
because that's the exact moment that you get to now redirect, and retrace your steps back. So give thanks for you sharing that,
Ashe.
Sister Selena.
Thank you. It's like you have all my words. I was like, oh my God, and she put it
Ashe.
in a book.
Ashe. We'll turn it over to anyone else in the family. Anyone else that would like to share?
If not, did you share?
Morning, rising, excuse me, rising.
Rising, rising, Brother AJ.
Um, so this rising, as the sister was just speaking, something that pulled tugged on me was the suffering and silence part.
Mm,
Uh, I believe I'm definitely uber guilty of that.
Mm,
Um, and I think sometimes silence is obviously good. One of um, one of God's words in the Bible, Christian faith, is to actually sit still.
mm,
mm,
Sit still allows you to connect, you know, search for alignment, get ready for peace,
mm,
mm,
and ultimately consent to what it is that you're looking for.
mhm,
mm,
mhm,
But I realize that my feet in it is sometimes the silence helps because the people that come with the noise is not the right energy.
mm,
mm,
mhm,
And so a lot of times people um, don't know what to say. And so they say what they think they're supposed to say.
mm,
And if you absorb that, um, you have no choice but to deal with that.
Ashe,
mm.
ashe.
Oh,
And so
Mhm,
sometimes for me, knowing the right energy to tap into or the right energy to allow to fill your space
mhm,
is very important.
Hmm.
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 Especially me, like now, my diagnosis and all the things that um, come up on, like for instance, we all know our phones listen to us, and we
Hmm.
see the signs. We talk about something.
Yeah.
My uh, my Instagram feed now is full of two. It's finished, full of two kind of tidbits. I get a bunch of um, holistic
Mm.
um, practitioners and people that are, speaking in regards to raw diets and fruits and, the actual things that we're supposed to be ingesting and
Mhm.
taking into our bodies.
Mhm.
And then it also feeds me, at the same time, it just seems so ironic, all the things that's coming up with um, these recalls
Yeah.
everything being contaminated, and
Mm.
it's if you don't have that ground about yourself, right? That's that noise right there
Hmm.
that I was talking about, right? That you could subconsciously gravitate towards, and it'll put you on a whirlwind.
Mm.
So um, the suffering and silence part, I think, is maybe not the suffering word, but
Mhm.
I would like to maybe change it to sitting in silence,
Mm.
Mm.
right? And I definitely I I'm a big fan of that, but I also, again, like I said, you want to make sure that if you are exchanging energies with individuals,
Yeah.
that it's the right energy for you and for what you need in your walk.
Not sure.
Shay.
Not
So
sure.
with that, I yield.
Mm.
Not sure.
Thank you for that share, brother.
Yes,
Mm.
giving thanks for that, Brother AJ. And you know you're always in our thoughts and prayers, and we're always just extending energy to you. I think what you just brought forward, and even what we talk about in the book is, like you said, right? Quieting the noise.
Mm.
Each one of us has a sacred responsibility assigned with a divine assignment.
Hmm.
And sometimes we think that, we may know because we move through something a certain way, how someone else should do it.
Mm.
And we think it's helpful to share.
Hmm.
Um, but every person who has an assignment on their life also has the equipment to
Hmm.
navigate it.
Hmm.
And that was my intention, even with this book, is not to position myself as the authority,
Hmm.
but to say, no, each of us is. At this stage, post-awakening,
Hmm.
we are all the authority, and we know why we're here.
Hmm.
And this is just the activation to stay on the path. And like you said, Brother AJ, to quiet the noise so that you're tapping into your own inner consent,
Right.
So
Right.
I wanted to share too what happened to me over the weekend. And I was
Mm.
like, I didn't know if I could, y'all. I would
Mm.
be quick because I know we at time. Um, but over the weekend, I attended a boating experience and I slipped on a boat, y'all. Hit my head. So the boat was anchored in the middle of the ocean. I slipped, I hit my head on the way down, and I went into the ocean, y'all, having never swam in the ocean before, right? I did during COVID learn to swim. It was one of those moments where I think when we were all sat down with the idea of there's this fear ruminating around us and you feel like it's out of your control. And one of the things that I wanted to grab hold of control of to make me feel anchored
Mm.
was a fear I had around learning to swim. So I did it. And I'm so grateful for that version of myself and that experience for this reason. But it made me sick when I had been sitting for a couple days now thinking about how did I get there? Because yes, y'all, I'm so aware of all the ways that that could have turned out. I'm very, very grateful. It makes me emotional to be
Mm.
sitting here with you all today. I've got a bump in the back of my head, but I'm here.
Mm.
And reading the first four chapters again, because every time I write a book, I promise y'all, it's really for me. You know what I mean? Like I'm really writing what it is that I needed from me. And so I probably go back to it more than anybody. And so reading through the first four chapters again, it really anchored me. And I had to think about all the ways I landed there in that moment, all the things I never really consented to, all the ways that I let agreement override alignment.
Mm,
There was so many ways that I was being pushed and redirected from this experience, but I had agreed to it, right? I had agreed to show up for someone. I had agreed to be there for someone else. And the misalignment showed up,
mm,
right? It showed up in conflict, and conflict doesn't always have to be disagreement, argument, right? The
mm,
conflict was just a schedule conflict,
mm,
a schedule conflict,
mm.
right? Where it just brought me to the awareness of this is not going to work.
Right.
And I had to really move mountains in order to return to make it work, right? And I say that to say, if we do not allow ourselves the time that's needed to sit with whether or not we truly consent with whatever it is we're doing,
Mm,
the Most High within and without will sit you down. Will sit you down
mm,
and remind you again of how important it is to have that stillness in that moment, to slow down long enough to recognize the misalignment and to accept it,
mm,
you know,
mm,
to slow down and recognize when you haven't consented
mm,
and to accept that
mm,
and just be okay with it, and not self-abandon in this notion of showing up for others. Um, so I just say that to say, I had a hard reset, y'all, a real hard
mm,
reset. Like, one of those where you have to reboot.
mm,
You know how they tell you, you could do a soft reboot or you could have a hard reboot.
mm,
And I do believe that so very often the message shows up for us subtly first. Subtle, subtle, subtle. And then the saxophone, next thing you know, the saxophones are playing, right? The saxophones are getting louder, y'all, right? Like you are in danger now because there was this low grade overriding that you were doing of yourself. So it was just another reminder for me, a deep reminder. And I had to hit my head, okay, in order
mm,
for it to really be, you know, to really it to be embodied,
mm.
truly embodied, even through injury. And so often it shows up that way. It shows up in illness, it shows up in injury, it
Yeah.
shows up in depression,
Yeah.
and it shows up in anxiety. Like it shows up in so many ways to show us that you're just operating out of alignment, true alignment. You've been, under this pretense of false peace, not true peace. So this work, it's imperative, it's important, it's
Mm.
essential, it's critical for our livelihood. So just wanted to share that with you all too.
I
But
say.
I'm okay.
I say. And
Yeah,
we are glad you are still here.
yeah,
And it was a traumatic experience
Giving thanks.
for yourself and and all of us, as a family, we all felt that in our body,
yeah,
learning what happened with you. And you know, I thank God that he helped you, get through that because in the ocean, anything can happen, you know.
yeah.
But yeah. So
Ashe,
we're thankful
ashe,
for that.
y'all. Giving thanks. None of us are exempt from the lessons, you know what I
Mm,
mean? And so I see the comments in the chat, and I just give thanks for you all. I give thanks that I have community I can share this with outside of even, my family. But yeah, giving thanks, y'all. This work, it's important.
mhm.
Like I said, it's critical,
Yes, yes.
Ashe. So with that said, family, I think we can move into our closing. And we will close out. And did you want to do call and repeat?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll do call and repeat
All right.
for our affirmations.
So this is the closing affirmation and all right, we're gonna take in everything on this call. So if you would like, always in spirit, if you want to unmute and repeat and recall, it's always appreciated. All right, here we go. I am remembering that I am someone who requires their own consent.
I am
I am
remembering that I
remembering
am
that I am
someone
someone
who
who
Someone
requires
who
requires
informed
requires
consent.
informed
informed
consent.
consent.
I move forward whole without leaving essential parts of myself behind.
I
I
I
move
I
move
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 forward
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 whole
whole,
whole
without
without
leaving
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 essential
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 parts
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 of
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 myself
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 behind.
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 I seek true peace over false alignment and avoidance.
I
I seek
seek true
true
peace
peace over
over
false
false
alignment
alignment and
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 avoidance.
avoidance.
avoidance. Oh,
And
shit.
avoided.
I am practicing sacred responsibility,
I am
I
I
am
practicing
am
practicing
sacred
practicing sacred
responsibility,
Ethical
responsibility.
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 the daily choice to live in alignment
The
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 daily
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 choice
choice to
choice
live in
choice
to
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 live
live
alignment
in
in
alignment
alignment
with who I am, remembering myself to be.
with
with
who
who
I
I
who I
am,
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 remembering
remembering
myself
remembering
to
myself
myself
be.
to
to
myself
be.
to
be.
be, myself to be. Ashe.
And
Yes.
Ashe.
Ashe,
Mhm.
Ashe.
Giving thanks, family. Thank you for showing up for yourselves today. Thank you for showing up to be in community with us. Like I said, it was a traumatic experience, but I'm held like, and I'm so grateful, and knowing that we also had this coming up, just the idea of getting anchored into the pages
Mm,
really helped me to derive, the reason why I went through what I went through this weekend too. So it's always in community, y'all. It's always in
definitely.
community, in the reflection. So I just give thanks.
Ashe. Have a blessed day. We love y'all. Much
Shay.
blessings.
I will be over this weekend because I need more context of what
Okay,
what
Shay.
happened. You cannot cliffhang me like that.
I know, right? I was thinking the same thing. Like, oh my
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness, y'all. Y'all can say, well, look, we can wrap up the call or we can stay on for anyone who wants to hear the story. I have it. I can certainly share the story, with anyone who wants to, or you can give me a call,
I'm
at another
staying
time if
on.
that works for you too. So y'all let me know.
I'm staying on. I'm here
You
for
stay
it.
on. So I had gone away actually to a trip, a quick stay with some of my sacred sisters, right? And it was purposeful and just beautiful. And I had already agreed to actually going away with my sacred sisters, right? But I also had overbooked myself in a sense where I had also agreed to a friend of mine here in New York that I would take part in her yacht club experience, right? So it's like she has like a fleet and she's been trying to get this idea off the ground of like, just bringing people, of color together on Long Island out for this experience. And it's really a beautiful experience, but in so many ways, I had to shift things to move things about in order to do it, right? One of them being that I returned early from my trip with my sacred sisters, right? So that was the first misalignment, right? It was the conflict of the schedule. And but I'm one of those people who, or I was, right? Because I'm remembering myself better in this moment, right? I'm remembering that consent is continuous, right? That I can always change my mind on these things when it just doesn't work. And but at that time I felt like I want to honor my commitment, right? So how can I make both of these things happen, right? No matter how it's stretching me, how can I make both of these things happen? So I came back early. I came back very early Saturday morning and midday Saturday. I'm out, on the boat with her to, be a part of this experience. And I'm there, and there were a series of other little things that happened while I was on the boat that kind of just showed me like small consent that really lands in being big consent, right? So one of the things was I am not one of these people, and this might be TMI for y'all, right? But I'm not a person who really finds comfort in like going to like public restrooms, especially not like on an airplane, in a boat, these kinds of things, because they tend to be small and just,
Hmm.
I don't know, something about being in those confined spaces in an already confined space is not my favorite thing. So I was waiting, 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 and then I was like, you know what? I really do just need to excuse myself and go. So I go down to and the boat is not so massive that you can't like see from the platform, a person that's going. So I didn't venture like off into this space, y'all, where I couldn't be seen. But I go down to go to the restroom, and the attendant, which each boat had like quite a few attendants, which I'm thankful for that also, said to me, whoever's been in that restroom has been in there a while. You might want to just go over to the other boat. When she said that, my eyebrows immediately went up, right? So just bringing it back to sacred responsibility, my body had already said a full-on no to that because it was like, how am I even doing that, right? They're not like connecting hotel rooms, like there's water, right? Ocean water in between. But people have been going back and forth across these boats the whole time, but I was not people, right? I was not doing this. So I'm like, okay, how do I do it? Right. So I asked her how, whatever. So she takes me, we go back to the back of the boat. I might be able to show you the space. Hold on. Let me see if I have a picture I can show y'all of the actual space. And I do. Here it is. I'm going to share my screen so you can see what this looked like. Let me know if y'all can see that. Somebody give me a thumbs up.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, cool. So they had all three boats like kind of tied to each other in this way. The
Mm,
space in between these boats is maybe like just shy of 3 feet. In this picture, it might look like it, depending on how you visually, assess space. It might look like it's further apart than it is, right? So she went over, she stood on the side where it's wet. And as I went to go over, she held my hand. I went over, no problem. So I used the restroom on that boat. Now it comes time for me to go back over. So if you could see, right now I'm in the space where it's wet on the right hand side.
mm,
But the other boat has more of like that plastic, not the actual wood landing space. Like the wood floor is very gripping, right? And I'm barefoot. All of us
mm,
are barefoot on there, right? So it's very gripping. But this metal or this plastic side is not so much. And the lip of that was wider than it was when I went over the first time to the gray boat, right? So when I went to go back over, I slipped. So as I did the little hop,
mm.
I slipped. And if you could imagine, like when you trip, you go forward, right? Like you trip, you forward, you kind of see it happening. You get a second, you might try to brace yourself or whatever. But when you slip, it's like your feet go from underneath you and you go backwards. And
Mm.
it's like the whole world just kind of flips upside down, right? It's crazy. So I slipped and I just went up. And when I went up, I hit my head on the other boat and I
Oh,
went into the water. And it's
what?
honestly hard to say that in hindsight now because I realized just how different that could have turned out. You know what I'm saying? But that's what happens. And so I'm in the water and I don't have that moment, right? I didn't have that moment of realizing that I was about to go in the water, right? I didn't see it happening. All I knew was I slipped. So I didn't never have that moment of realizing like you're about to go in the water. I just had the moment of like, oh my God, I'm in the water, right? And at this point, I could see, like the waters are, this is not, the Maldives, right? This water is not, blue. So I could see like through the brownness of the water, like the light, of where, I can swim back up. Y'all, I just learned to swim, like I said again, right, during COVID. And I still don't actively ever choose to jump into water where my feet can't touch the ground, right? I just don't.
Right.
So this is the first time ever I'm doing this, but it's nothing but God, right? So I'm paddling myself back up. And then as I get back up to the top, I like put my arm, like rest my forearm onto the boat. And then like she grabs me, like by the hand and like helps me to pull me out. But I had to sit with how in the world did we get here? You know what I'm saying? Like, and in this moment, I'll be very honest with you, as I'm on the boat, I'm still on the boat in the middle of the ocean for another at least 45 minutes. There wasn't this like feeling around me energetically of like, oh my gosh, this just happened. You fell in the water. Like it didn't feel like that. Why? Because people who typically go out on these like small yachts like boats or whatever, they're jumping in and out of these boats all the time. That's why it's made that way in the back, right? It's made for you to
Mm,
easily just jump into the water and come back out the water or sit on the edge and put your feet. I'm just not one of those people, right? So in that moment, it didn't feel as emergent because it wasn't like, oh my gosh, like around me kind of thing. It wasn't until now we get back to the shore, to the dock, and I go to get in my car, and like you raise you rest your head up against the headrest in the car so that you could put your seatbelt on. No, none of us drive with the head like up against the thing, but you do that for a second just so you can put the seatbelt on. And that's when I realized, like, oh, my head is sore. My head is sore. I didn't think I had any like injuries or anything. I don't know if it was adrenaline. I think in a lot of ways it was just God keeping me calm so that I could make my way safely back home. But that's when I realized like my head is sore. But I still didn't really investigate it. And y'all know I have a lot of thick locks. So I kind of touched it and I knew it was tender, but I was like, all right, I'm good. When I got home, James then like, took and like opened up my locks and like looked at my scalp and he was like, oh my God, like it was so red, it was like bruised, it was swollen. And I say that to say, right, with all this hair and thick locks, right, it just goes to show just how hard, I had actually hit my head. So
mm,
with that said, that's the story, but I have been wrestling with, what is the message behind this? Because what in the world? Like, it can't just be that God wanted me to know I can swim because we could have got to this a lot easier. You know what I'm saying? Like, but the truth is, there have been a lot of micro moments over a long period of time where I've just been overriding myself and saying yes to others, right? Especially when I've already said yes and I've entered a quote unquote, commitment. I'm one of those people, if I commit to doing something, I pride myself, or I did pride myself, right? Off of being a person of my word. It's a part of my conditioning, my upbringing, right? To be a person of your word. And the truth is, I'm releasing that theory. I'm releasing that thought. I have to be a person of my own consent. I have to be a person of divine alignment. I have to be a person who can reduce and turn down the noise so that I'm clear on when I'm being redirected. Because there were so many moments, including just the moment when I was like, go over to the other boat, where I was being nudged through the body that I was not in full consent, with these things. So I am reminded in this moment, and I'm sharing it with all of you because I love you, so that because I do believe that a message for any one of us is a message for all of us. I have to quiet and slow down long enough so that I can really hear what God is channeling through me, what message is hitting my body and trying to override that prior version of myself that says, but you said yes, but you said yes, you need to commit, right? Like, and just override that. And how often, you can literally bump your head simply because you're just not actively you're not actively in pursuit of your own consent, you know. So
mm.
that's the story, y'all. I
Oh,
mean,
that's
I'm
that's
safe, I'm okay. The swelling is down. It is still very sore. Um, but yeah, the saxophones were getting louder, okay? Like it's just crazy. And if you're not familiar with what I mean about the saxophones are getting louder, I'm gonna drop in the chat, okay? The trending thing of when people are doing things, they're moving through this world and danger is near, and then the saxophone sounds just start getting louder, like letting you know, because it's a narrative in movies, right? Like letting you know something is about to happen. And I really need to slow down when I hear that first horn, so I'm sharing that with you all. So
Good.
I
Very
get
thanks.
things.
I,
Ashe.
in my
I'm
thought,
so, I'm so
I'm
glad
very
you're
thankful.
okay.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Empress.
I'm thankful for them locks too, because the I couldn't
Yeah,
just imagine if you were still sore from after hitting, and I know you have a lot of, you have a lot of hair.
yeah,
You might have experienced unconsciousness, and that's
yeah,
a whole nother ball game in the water. So definitely
absolutely.
giving thanks to
Absolutely.
you that you're okay. Blessings.
Yeah,
Love
give
you,
thanks.
sis.
Thank you. I love you too. Yeah, I'm like, y'all, I will be listening, okay, and slowing down and ensuring that I'm really consenting to the things that I'm doing because the Most High was speaking to me and I was overriding it. And I didn't realize I was doing that. I was doing it unconsciously or at the very least subconsciously, but I'm bringing it to my consciousness most definitely now.
Absolutely. And that's how I lost myself,
Mhm.
overriding what spirit was saying. And the more you do that, spirit stops talking. In my case, that's exactly what happened. I could hear nothing, no small voice, no nudge, no nothing.
Yeah.
We don't want that for you. I love you. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, give thanks. I love you too, sis. Give thanks. Well, that's the story, y'all. So yeah, we are going to be moving in clear consciousness, and um conscious consent. Yeah. So I give thanks. I give thanks. Brother Ruli said, thank God you're here and okay. Yeah, no, thank God. I'm definitely thanking God. Talk about sacred responsibility, and talking to my kids, I felt pretty guilty, because as much as of course I want to keep my I want to keep myself safe for myself, I also want to be here for my kids, and not um just out here being careless. And sometimes you don't think overriding your own consent and overriding your own inner notions is careless, and it is. So yeah, definitely going to be not just safer, but more aware and still and slowing down to make sure that I'm not overriding until I get it down, right? Until it's on autopilot, right? That's what I'll be doing. So I thank you all for caring enough to stay on with me and hear the journey. I give thanks. I give thanks that I'm here and able to be a community with you all and that you're here because this space is really what helped me to completely understand what message I needed to have. It was me going back to the book for the book study that reminded me of, wow, this is how I ended up on that dock. This is how I ended up in the water. So I just thank you all for being the space that you are and holding me as well. So with that, I yield. And Ashe, amen to you all. Wishing you all the best, most conscious, consenting, aligned week. And I'll meet you all in the chat. I'll be posting this recording into the school community. I'll also be opening the way of the next week and the prompt that'll be shared there as well. And we'll talk then. Have a great week, everyone.
Give thanks, peace, and love.
Okay, thanks.
Give thanks.